This was a very bad exploit that essentially allowed anyone to inject and steal complete control of your computer. ClawdBot would just run it because it has complete access to this thing right here. Do I think that it's overhyped? Yes, I think it is very overhyped. But do I think that it's the future? Yes, I think it is very much the future. Hey guys, welcome to this video. I am not doing a live stream. I have been just too busy vibe coding, basically messing with ClawdBot, now called OpenClaw. And I just want to make this video in response, well, more like an inspiration to Ramya Chinadurai. Sorry if I messed up that name. But I really want to break down a few things here. I'm sorry if this video goes on a little bit too long, if I'm sort of hopping all over the place. This is not made by AI or anything like that. I basically just wrote my thoughts down, and I'm going to go down all of them unscripted, right? So the very first thing, just so I don't hop around everywhere, is what is ClawdBot? I want to break down exactly how it works. It's basically the infrastructure is cron jobs matched with an AI model in the middle, usually a coding one, and then a channel, which is what you use to actually talk to your ClawdBot, right? So if you guys want a breakdown of that right here, you can probably pause the video, read this over here on to the right of my screen. But the cron job is the trigger. It's basically like the scheduler. The AI model is obviously, the AI model is the brain. It's actually what does the majority of the work and like manages everything. And the channel is just the interface that you use to talk to it. You can use Telegram, you can use Discord, you can use WhatsApp, whatever you set up the bot with, right? The original channel for talking to these sort of bots is a terminal like this. So if you've set up ClawdBot, you have already used the original channel to talk to these sort of bots, right? That's the CLI, that's like Cloud Code, Codex, etc. We'll go over that in just a bit. But the next question is, do I think that it's overhyped? Yes, I think it is very overhyped. But do I think that it's the future? Yes, I think it is very much the future. So how did it get so popular? It first like, I want to talk about this really quick because we have one individual right here who's Nick Sarev. He put out that ClawdBot got really popular due to crypto grifters. And look, I hate meme coins just as much as the next guy, but it's just incorrect. It's false information. Honestly, ClawdBot, or OpenClaw now, they rebranded for the third time, is it gained popularity, in my opinion, through the algorithm. It got the majority of its push through a AI and a vibe coding influencer called Alex Finn on Twitter. He's also on YouTube. But as you can see over here, I bookmarked this when I first saw it. But you can see over here it has 4.4 million views. He was not shilling a meme coin or anything like that. The way that crypto usually works is that when something gains popularity, then they create a coin and they try to figure out a way to like essentially scam people from that hype. They try to ride the hype, right? So it didn't get popular. Like, crypto people didn't push it out there. If anything, the algorithm, the Twitter and the YouTube algorithm are the ones that pushed it out there because people found an interest in it, right? So this is definitely this is where I say, is it the future? Yes, because it is extremely an interesting way to interact with these AI bots, but it is largely hype because of all the flaws that are in it. So we're going to break down basically the pros and cons now. So first, what is CLI AI Coding? The very first one that came out was Claude Code CLI by Anthropic, and that is pretty much it is an AI model, or it connects to AI models, and you can talk to it and it'll actually code everything for you. So in this window right here where I wrote that stuff, down here in the terminal, this is actually ChatGPT's 5.2 Codex that is running in the terminal. So I can say, this is the CLI, right? So I can say, okay, what next do you recommend for us to get started faster? And I just press enter. I'm just talking to it just like I'm talking to an AI model, like, I don't know, like Google or something. And then it'll actually sit there and it'll spit everything back out to me. So this is basically the coolest thing for coding, for vibe coding, is that you have a bot that sits here and essentially lives within your computer, that, excuse me, that talks to you and does all of the coding for you. So the very first example of this sort of experience would be Cursor, right, with their IDE. Then Claude Code came out and basically made it a little bit better. And then now we have everyone essentially has a CLI now, all the major ones, right? So here it says to get started fast, do the minimal path, blah, blah, let it run 30, 40 minutes, yada, 30, 60 minutes, review the signal, yada, 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 and all that fun jazz. So I guess my coding is actually done, which is bad for an explanation. But I'm currently trying to code a arbitrage bot, and I'm just using this to basically vibe code it. And the very big difference between the pros and cons of the CLI, the con is that it doesn't have administrative access to your computer. That means if I say, okay, implement step 3 and tell me how, and help me run this. So if I told ClawdBot that, if I said help me run this, ClawdBot would just run it because it has complete access to this thing right here. Okay? Whereas the CLI does not have access to it. So that is a con in the form of convenience. But it is a very strong pro in the form of security. This setup is way more secure than ClawdBot or OpenClaw, whatever you guys want to call it, Moltbot, whatever. Way more secure in the sense that like it's not gonna run scripts and you're not gonna get hacked and blah blah. That's why they say, you know, upload it to a Mac Mini or a computer or whatever. Mine is actually like over here in the corner. But upload it to something else so that you can't get hacked. There's no scripts. But then you also have to give a bunch of like API access to your bot anyways. So a lot of those can get leaked. We've already had tons of security posts. So there's this one right here. An agent named Sam Altman tried to hijack bots on Notebook with the prompt injection yesterday, where he was basically sending a bunch of prompt injections. This guy made a ERC 8004, which is basically like an NFT standard to give sort of a passport to these agents, which I think is a really cool integration and use case for crypto, for blockchain. And it doesn't seem like they're, you know, trying to profit from it at all. So that's actually, you know, really, really cool. Hats off to them. This is a Claude.atg. Yeah, I don't know who it is. But anyways, and then we have another person over here, Mav Levin, who posted this out. And this was hot, you know, this was fixed within a few hours. But this was a very bad exploit that essentially allowed anyone with the specific website set up to inject and steal complete control of your computer through the ClawdBot, because the ClawdBot had access, so they would get access to the ClawdBot, and then from there can have complete access to your computer. So this is a very, very scary exploit. And majority, like, there's ways around it that you could defend yourself if you were, you know, technically savvy. But most people that are messing around with ClawdBot right now are not that technically savvy, so they would have been at risk for this. And this is just one exploit that's already been out. Who knows what else is out there? I can guarantee you that Lazarus is out there messing around and trying to figure out how they can hack as many people as possible and steal as much money as possible, or do just as much damage as possible with this, because Lazarus is just, I mean, if you don't know about Lazarus, just Google them. They're very, very bad, shady characters. Anyway, so let's just continue. You see, I'm kind of hopping around everywhere. So let's just continue, right? So the pros of a CLI is that it's secure and it's cheap, especially like if you're paying, you know, for Opus or for Codex, you're most likely looking at $20-$25 a month for most people manually, just for their pro plan. And if that's not enough, then you could always upgrade it to like 100. But I would think that most people, most retail, is okay with just the $20 a month. Okay, and then so cost and security, the main pros. The cons is inconvenience. But I would like to add as another pro as well is that you learn so much more using a CLI rather than something like ClawdBot. Because when you're using a CLI, I have to go between this and that, and I'm seeing exactly what is being done on like a step-by-step basis. You know, like if I tell it to do something here, it will explain exactly what it's doing, right? Like over here, it did some code over here, and it'll like actually go through and tell you what's changing, what's being done, blah 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 blah. Okay, so like that's really cool to see, and you're learning, especially like these grayed out text right here. I'm checking if the config needs example of et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you're learning simultaneously while also doing something. And on ClawdBot, you don't see that. You just see if you're on Telegram, it'll say, you know, it's typing, and that's it. If you're on the TUI, which most people don't use, the TUI is essentially this, right? The technical interface for ClawdBot. If you're doing that, then you can see everything that it's doing, but it moves way too fast. It doesn't explain what's happening and then do things in a step-by-step nature. It just basically does all of this coding, and then we'll come right over here and then call whatever functions that needs to be called, most likely something like this cargo run app or whatever, and then it'll actually start running the app and like do everything that I'm seeing right now, which is basically this, and then, you know, whatever after let's go ahead and pause that. After it sees this and it like analyzes what's happening, then it'll come back to the code, to the terminal, and like do whatever coding needs to be done, and it basically has control of both. So it doesn't need to be micromanaged, but at the same time, you're not learning anything if you're a newbie, right? And by the way, I'm also not like super pro whatever. I've just been obsessing with this stuff over the last pretty much month since I've had a medical issue. I've just been sitting in here hacking all day. But okay, but this video is gonna get a little bit too long, so let's just continue on, right? So the pros and cons of ClawdBot. So ClawdBot has administrative power and is convenient. So as I just explained, it is both this and it is this, right? It has command over both of them. That is pretty much the like bells and whistles of ClawdBot, of the OpenClaw. It can act as its own essentially person, producing the code, which is this side over here, and managing itself, which is this side over here. So production of code and execution. That is basically the light bulb of OpenClaw, and why so many people think that it's so cool, because it's like a real person that can actually, you tell it, hey, go do this, bam, it'll go do this, right? The cons is that it is very insecure. I think that most people, especially retail, should wait until it becomes a lot more secure, and it'll happen over time. You know, it's a very new project. I think it's like less than 3 months old. So over time, it's going to get optimized. These security bugs that I showed you recently, they're going to be patched. And then that's when I think it would be better to hop in. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get wrecked, right? There's definitely people smarter than you out there that are going to look to exploit you in any way possible. So just be very, very careful. Okay, so that is a very bad con, in my opinion, of OpenClaw. The pro is that it's convenient, and another con is that it is extremely expensive. How expensive is it? One of my friends is using OpenClaw for very menial tasks. I would assume. I don't think that they're really like coding a bunch of stuff, because they literally have dev teams to do things. But I think he just wants to like get a taste of the future and all that stuff. But for very menial tasks. And they're spending about like $85 a day. that equates to like $2,500 a month. If you have the money to burn and you just want to get a glimpse into the future, by all means, go ahead. Like it's fun to play with. It's really cool. If you don't have money to burn, I don't think that it's time to hop in right now. And there's a lot of content. Where'd it go? Now there's a lot of content coming out on how to optimize this. Actually, like I said, Ramya is the one that influenced my little video, this video production right now. But her initial post that I found from her, by the way, shout out to Ramya, is that she's on a quest to try to get ClawdBot or OpenClaw to work for $10 a month. I think it is impossible. I think it's just not going to happen, right? So she's basically trying to switch through all the different free models to see if she can unlock all of the potentials of ClawdBot with, $10 a month, essentially, Open Router. And I have already tried this. It doesn't work. The biggest problem with this is that the models are not smart enough, period. They are not smart enough. It's not just me that says this as well. This other guy, Crunkosaurus, says he created this article, Molt Maxing, why your AI assistant is only as good as his engine. The setup, 2 days in Cloud jail, blah, 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 I touch grass, yada, yada, yada. So he goes through this article. Shout out to this Crunkosaurus guy. He goes through this article where he talks about multiple different things. Engine 1, Quen 3, 30B, 4-bit, it functions, but the soul has left the body, etc., etc. Kumi K2, thinking so close and yet. And then OpenAI GPT 5.2, Codex, da, 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 da. So he's pretty much everything. When I've already did all this stuff, right? So I already tried Kimi. Actually, I didn't try 30B Quen 3 because I don't have the hardware on my secondary computer to run that one. But I tried 7B. I tried some local hosting, some stuff. But you can see from other examples and other reports essentially that local hosting is pretty much impossible, right? The only models that can truly run ClawdBot how it's supposed to be ran is Opus 4.5 and GPT 5.2 Codex. And it depends. I personally prefer Codex because it's just more like analytical, right? It talks to me more in terms of like, it explains things more. Like I really much like to learn while I'm doing things as much as possible. So I just prefer that sort of technical personality, I guess you can say. And also the fact that it just asks so much. It's more of like an actual conversation. Whereas with Opus, it has more human personality. So if you just want to feel like you're talking to an employee, then by all means, you'll definitely like Opus 4.5 way better. But it also just sort of does things and it doesn't talk to you more. Like it does things on its own without having more management, I guess you can say, within it. So the differences are very small in terms of like in terms of coding capability. They're pretty much the same in my opinion, but I don't know. I think it's just more of like a personal preference, honestly. And I also think that Opus 4.5 bugs out more, specifically because it doesn't ask you more questions like Codex does. Codex, when you can tell it exactly what you want and it gives you, some ideas or whatever, it just acts better. With Opus, you can also do that, but you need to tell it specifically, okay, we're planning something. Let's discuss something, right? Whereas with Opus or with Codex, it's kind of already just does that from the get-go. So anyways, I'm blabbering on now. So let's just move on from there. But one of the major cons of ClawdBot is the cost. So now we have all of this content coming out. Now that we have a huge rush of users that came in to try out ClawdBot, everybody is realizing that it is way out of their price range. How much out of their price range? I'm talking about $2,000, $6,000, maybe even $10,000. Depends on how many bug loops you get and how unoptimized your bot is a month. That's a lot. That's expensive. if you want a virtual assistant, you can just get one from the Philippines online, $300, $350, $500 a month, and they do good work. You know, maybe they won't be like your only personal assistant or virtual assistant. Maybe they'll have like, you know, multiple clients, but it doesn't matter. Like, they do good work. You tell it to do something, bam, it does something. You know, you tell it, hey, go do this thing, you know, go do some research, yada, yada, yada. Print me a report at 8 a.m. every single day. They're going to go do that. They're most likely going to use AI to do that. Right? So so you still have that human factor where it doesn't bug out when it's developing something. And it doesn't cost that much money. You know, like it's just way too much credit burning, especially if you're on Opus 4.5. It's just super expensive. So now you have a bunch of people creating content. Even Alex Finn, I think just today came out with this article saying, oh, I'm going to save you thousands of dollars on ClawdBot by using Opus 5 for everything. You're shredding your money and tokens. In this video, I cover how you can use multiple models to change your performance, blah, blah, blah. So just to break this down really quick. Oh, let me just try to move over here. Just to break this down really quick. The brain, he says, Opus 4.5, cost savings would be Kimi 2.5, heartbeat, haiku, because it doesn't really need that much. If you guys do not have heartbeat monitoring like doctors, you need to have that. I'll go into that in just like at the end of the video to optimize some stuff. So for coding, they use, he recommends GPT 5.2, Codex GPT 5.2 X high. The cost savings ones would be Minimax. I personally have tried Minimax. It is not that great. It bug loops a lot. So one of the things that people have to, that you have to really be careful about with cost savings, and why I say you should only use Opus 4.5 and GPT 5.2, is that you will end up spending just as much money, maybe even more, from just debugging stuff. If you use the cheaper models, they break so often. They're smart, but but when you compare it to like Opus or like GPT 5.2, they're so dumb. You know, like it's not the experience that you want. Trust me. You're going to be spending so much time troubleshooting your bot just so that it can troubleshoot its code. Like, it just doesn't, it doesn't make any sense. If you wanted to actually like save time and have convenience, then you don't want to deal with that stuff. You're going to be spending more time dealing with that stuff than you know, like the pros and the cons sort of outweigh each other. The cons outweighs the pros. So if you're trying to save money, I would say for coding, you would need GPT 5.2 or Opus 4.5. And those are very, very expensive. Okay. So he recommends for web search Opus 4.5, DeepSeek, like, yeah, that's 5, content, Kimi 2, K 2.5, whatever. It's like all of this stuff, like everything savings is fine. The most important thing is the coding, because that's really what ClawdBot is all about, right? So if you tell ClawdBot to do something, hey, wake me up at blah, 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 it's most likely going to code that task out to do for you. It's not like it's just like, oh, okay, well, I have this timer and oh, it's this time. No, it develops a program to do that for you. You tell it to do anything, it pretty much develops a program to do that. So the coding is kind of like the body of it, right? Like you need to have a very good coding infrastructure, a good, model, in order for this to run properly. So now everyone realizes, oh, it's too expensive. You know, here's some content to save some money. So it's just not that great. Let me see where I'm at. You see, I'm going all over the place. So show example of Codex CLI vibe coding experience. I actually already did that, guys. You can see right here. I'll do it again. Let's say I want to RWAs on orderly versus hyperliquid. Modify this code to match that. Let's do XAU, XAG, which is gold, silver, Google, which I know that they just launched today. NVIDIA. I don't know, Tesla. I don't even know what's on there, to be honest. Let's see. Okay, whatever. I just tell it that. I really just want to show the whole like process of this coding and then me interacting over here for you to see everything, right? So while it's doing that, let's just continue on. Why you need high-end model? I actually already said that. My bad, guys. I'm hopping all over this place. I have ADHD. Alex Fenn is creating. Okay, so let's talk about optimization really quick. So the heartbeat and the QMD. Oh, by the way, look, it's already done coding. So look, or it's already coding. We should not switch to it until we confirm they're still listed on both exchanges right now. Okay, so this is unfortunately I'm not going to be able to show. Run these two commands and paste the results below. I'll be able to. So like you see this right here. Run these two commands and paste this down below. It cannot do that. It requires me to do that. ClawdBot or OpenClaw can do that. It doesn't need to ask you that. It just does it. You know what I mean? And that's like the beautiful thing of OpenClaw. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys really quick the optimization. I had to pull up and find exactly where it's at. So back to Ramya. She has a post here where she discussed right here. Awesome. Glad you're diving into Quadrant and QMD2. It looks like there is real fix for the content bloat without relying on monster models. Auto doctor from blah, blah, blah scripts. It's actually not my script. Thanks for that, but it's not my script. It is from these guys. So QMD stands for quick markdown, and it is created by this Toby fella with this nice little top hat or whatever that is. But you basically need to download this, integrate it as a skill. But basically it just helps the bot, ClawdBot, OpenClaw, read everything and contextualize everything in a much cleaner fashion. Instead of having these super long context windows, it breaks everything down so that you're not just burning through these credits. So this will actually help you save a lot of money. And it becomes a little bit slower because it saves the files locally, but that's why you have a local machine anyways. And then it like pulls from those instead of, you know, this large context window. So when you're vibe coding, you basically do that. You say, hey, look, whatever, you know, I'm going to go to sleep. Everything that's said today, save it into a file, into like a README or whatever, or into a continuation file that I can plug in tomorrow, and we can just continue on where we left off. Because a lot of these CLIs, like not a lot, but all of these CLIs don't have memory, right? So as soon as you turn off, or close this window, it'll open back up and it'll just be a blank slate. So that can be a problem if you're coding and then you forget to basically tell it like to save the README, because then it won't know what it did. Right. So anyways, so you manually would tell it to make a README, and then the next session you open it back up. You say, hey, check this README, check this continuation file, and that will help save a lot of tokens. So this is essentially the same thing that it does. And then there's another individual over here, Zach Hiley, who created this doctor system, OpenClaw survival guy. This is one person's note. It's not official documentation, blah, blah, blah. Now, this is really cool because what it does is it creates a multi-doctor setup. I wish that it looks like he changed this a bit. But it creates cron jobs. This is for a multi-agent. I'll just explain it. It's for a multi-agent setup, which is really where ClawdBot and OpenClaw sort of shines. But one of the problems with ClawdBot, as I explained before, is these bug loops that just burns through credits. By creating a doctor and a multi-agentic setup, like this right here by Banu Teja, this is his multi-agentic setup where he has like 12 agents running simultaneously, and this is his like little mission control that I'm sure he vibe coded with the stuff. But it shows you all of the different agents. It shows you the tasks that are queued up, and then it shows you the live feed of what they're doing. I mean, this is like the pinnacle of what this is, what the future looks like, right? Like this is how ClawdBot should be run. But the problem with this is that when you're running any of these agents, because ClawdBot is kind of unoptimized and the AI models are just not really there yet, they will bug out a lot, right? So when they bug out and they go through these bug loops, if you're sitting here and you have the terminal and it's editing code and then tells you to do something, you do it, and then it's an error and you send it back and it edits codes. Once that happens like 2-3 times, you as a human can realize, okay, there's something wrong here. You know, like he's editing too much code and whatever. So one example of live example of me is that I pasted an API key and I missed one, like the very end letter or number, whatever it was, missed the last character, and I pasted it, and it was going through loops of trying to fix code in order to force it to work, when in reality it was just a human error. I just didn't put the entire API key there. If you did that with ClawdBot, it would loop and loop and loop and loop, most likely until it timed out, burned a hole through your pocket, or just basically committed seppuku or something, right? Like it would just burn off. It would not be a good experience. But here, when there's a human watching this and realizing, okay, something's wrong here, you can go through and say, hey, look, maybe I typed something wrong. You need to take take a break, reanalyze everything, and tell me what should I do. And that's what I did. It gave me a code to check like all of the API keys, if they were, whatever, anything's messed up, and to print out, true, false values. And bam, we found exactly which API key was wrong. I realized that I missed a number. It even told me that. I was like, oh, easy. So I swapped it out. Bada boom, bada bing. It started working. But what doctors do with the setup like this, when a architect tells a developer to develop something, right? And it goes through these bug loops, a doctor comes in and checks the heartbeat of all of the different agents. And it basically says, okay, if someone is within this bug loop, if they're running the same sort of, if they're executing the same task like 3, 4, 5 times, then there's a bug loop. Stop it. Set it up or reset it, and then let it go off again. That's usually the task of the doctor. The problem with this is that it costs more tokens just to maintain your bot so that they don't burn extremely more tokens, extremely higher amount of tokens. And you need not just one doctor, but you need a doctor for your doctor, and you need a doctor for your doctor's doctor. So it's kind of, it's just really weird, right? To work and try to optimize this, because each time you like set up another agent to like run these cron job, heartbeat checkups, is just burning more money, but then you're saving yourself money. So like which one, I don't know. In my opinion, we're just not there yet. I think that in the next maybe 6 months to 12 months, we'll have Opus 5.6 or something, which would be so smart that it won't run into these bug loops. And that's when we'll really see where we'll really see this sort of technology shine, these agentic, self-serving, self-monitoring agents. But anyways, I'm just going on a huge tangent. So that's how ClawdBot's supposed to be experienced, through stuff like this. And the good thing about ClawdBot and why it's blowing up and all of this stuff is that it really shows a lot of these large AI teams that there is a target market for this. There's a market fit for this. Like, people want this sort of stuff. So we already just saw, I think it was yesterday or this morning, Codex, OpenAI developers launched the quote unquote Codex app, which is funny because if you look down into the comments and you see up here, it was I guess called ChatGPT Atlas. So they're just rushing out there to try to basically get market share before everyone else starts making this, because that Anthropic and Google are going to be making this as well. But what this is essentially a workspace.
Today we're excited to introduce the Codex.
Is essentially a workspace. So here's the website right here. And it is a command center. It is exactly the same as the multi-agent setup that I was showing you, it's pretty much this. This is mission control. And this is OpenAI's Codex mission control command center thing, right? Where you have basically all of the different AI automation skills over here, blah, blah, blah. They can talk to each other. You have something right here where you can say, you know, how does it work? And then, you know, it'll just talk to you and do all the coding stuff. You can tell one agent, hey, do this. The other agent, hey, do this, blah, blah, blah. So this is, so they're already coming out with stuff to try and make OpenClaw obsolete. I really think in the future, OpenClaw ClawdBot is not going to be the, you know, the main thing. I think that there's definitely going to be a market for it. There's always a market for open source products, especially first to market. But I think it's going to become like Linux, right? Like how many people do you know actually use Linux? How many retail people do you know that actually use Linux? Not a lot. How many developers do you know use Linux? A lot, right? So I think it's going to be something like that. Most people are going to be using either OpenAI, Gemini, or Anthropic, just like most people use Mac or Windows, right? So anyways, okay, this video is just way too long. But if you guys actually got through all of it, I highly appreciate it. I'm gonna go drink some water. My throat is killing me now. But make sure you like, subscribe, follow, all that fun jazz. And if you guys want, you know, links to any of these things right here, any of these windows, just ask me. I'll just go ahead and post them in the comments. But yeah, anyways, thanks for watching. Peace.